Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Murdad Hariri, and I am the president and CEO of RX Connection. We have a very exciting program for you today. We have a dynamic duo, Leslie and Jesse Mezerak. They are the power behind Get Courageous, which is a most prominent executive coaching firm with a passion for empowering leaders. So Leslie and Jess brings a wealth of experience and expertise to the table, and we're dedicating and guiding professionals toward the highest potentials. So just a little quick introduction. At Get Courageous, they have crafted a result-driven approach that addresses the unique challenges that the leaders face today. Their commitment to personalized coaching ensures that each client receives tailored support, whether navigating organizational changes or building confidence or launching. Just 1 second, I'm going to have to let some folks in. Sorry. Launching innovative products with products like executive and leadership coaching. Leslie and Jess help professionals strengthen their interpersonal skills, lead diverse team, and prevent burnout, ultimately fostering a culture of growth and success. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce you to Leslie and Jess. They're awesome ladies, and I think they're going to have a great presentation for you that you can really get a lot out of it just for your own personal or professional skills. So Jesse and Leslie, I think you're on. So hello, Jesse.
Thank you.
All right, there's Jess Mezerak, and then Leslie's also unmuted. So go ahead, ladies.
Thank you so much.
If you want to share your camera and so on, that'd be great. Looks like we got a bunch of people are joining.
Great. So you'll just let them in and we'll start rolling. Thank you all.
All right. Thank you. So go right ahead.
Murdad, thank you so much for giving us the space and the opportunity to be here and talk about a subject that we're super passionate about. Today is the toolkit for battling imposter syndrome. And as we get started, there we are. Is my screen going to roll? There we go. My name is Leslie. You're also
Do you have your camera on, Leslie, by any chance?
Yeah.
No.
My camera is on.
Okay. Well, I don't see you guys.
Try going into gallery view. Innocent, can you see us? I can see.
Yeah, we can see her. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, I can see her. That's okay. I was just in a different view. That's go right ahead. Sorry.
Okay, awesome. So yes, we have the same last name. We're a mother-daughter coaching team, and today we're talking about imposter syndrome. And really excited to be here with all of you today. I'm here from Orlando. We have Jess is here. Where are you from, Jess?
From Orlando, but living in Lisbon, Portugal.
Yeah, so that's where we're transmitting from today. Typically, we would ask where everybody's from, but the chat is not enabled, and that's okay. So we'll just kind of roll forward throughout today. Now, you may be wondering, what's this all about? What's going to happen afterwards? At the end of the program today, we're going to give you access to the toolkit for battling imposter syndrome. There's no charge for it. It's got the resources that we're going to talk about today. There's a QR code, and you can easily download those. And I'll also make sure to share the link with Murdad afterwards, and if he'd like to do a follow-up email to everybody that attended to make sure they have the link to download the resources. So Jess, take it away.
All right. So to get started, what is imposter syndrome? While there's no official medical definition for it, there is one really great definition here that calls it a behavioral health phenomenon described as self-doubt about intellect, skills, or accomplishments. So it's difficult for people with imposter syndrome to internalize their success. Instead, they experience a lot of self-doubt, anxiety, could be depression, fear of being exposed as a fraud in the workplace. And all of this, even though they have clear evidence of their success. So in other words, it's about doubting your abilities, doubting yourself, and feeling like a fraud. Some of those words will probably pop up. Cool. So what's interesting, it seems like nowadays everyone's talking about it. Social media, daily conversations, imposter syndrome has become a word that you hear day in and day out. So let's talk about it. Most people experience imposter syndrome at some point in their lives. Research summarized in the International Journal of Behavioral Science in 2011 noted that 70% of us have felt like an imposter at some point. Quite frequently, when in our coaching, what we see imposter syndrome show up, it's when we're facing a new challenge. Very often, when we're starting a new job or role, a lot of people, when they enter new management roles, for example, new departments, purchasing a business, or even needing to learn new processes, learn a new software, learn and use a new software, right? That's something we've all probably faced. Learning about new products that maybe they need to understand better or sell. So these are a lot of scenarios when we see imposter syndrome. It's not always a constant across the board, across your whole life. Sometimes it comes with a new challenge. Something interesting about imposter syndrome, it's not all doom and gloom. It's not all bad news. So here's a take, here's an opinion. There might actually be an upside. There might actually be multiple upsides to imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome can actually motivate us to work harder, work smarter, possibly even make us better learners. Adam Grant talks about this in his book, which is called Think Again. I really recommend this book if you're interested in learning more about, if you have any experiences with imposter syndrome, how they affect performance. Another upside I'd like to explore of imposter syndrome. This is based on research from Basima Tufik, an assistant professor at MIT Sloan. She says there might be another upside for people who experience imposter syndrome. So in one study, I'm going to first of all read through this. This phenomenon is associated with being more attuned to other people's perceptions and feelings. So imposter syndrome is associated with being more attuned to other people. Being more adept in relationships can in turn help your career. So it's okay to have imposter thoughts sometimes. Now, in her research, she found that there's one study with doctors in training who had more frequent imposter thoughts were actually significantly better at handling sensitive interactions with patients, which led to those patients giving them higher interpersonal skill ratings. Again, being in tune with other people's perceptions and feelings. In a different study, there were job candidates who were primed to have more imposter thoughts, and they asked more questions during informal pre-interview chats. As a result of this, they were perceived by hiring managers as having better people skills. So actually having these thoughts can lead us to behave a little bit differently. Plus, in Basima Tufik's samples, imposter thoughts did not seem to hurt performance. If you'd like to read more about this, you'll find an article about Basima's work on our resource page. We'll be sure to share that link as well if you'd like to get into the details there. But since we're all here today, you probably know there can be downsides of imposter syndrome as well. So let's talk about those. Imposter syndrome is a psychological pattern that can affect pharmacists or high achievers in any industry, of course, and can be characterized by feelings of self-doubt and inadequacy. Some symptoms include what you see here, perfectionism, right? The tendency to be a perfectionist. I might feel like I need to be 100% on my game all the time. Atychiphobia, which is the fear of failure. Pharmacists, anyone might feel like they've tricked people into believing they're capable of the job that they're doing now, right? Because especially in new roles, this is something I see quite frequently at work. I'm in this new role. Do I deserve to be here? Did I trick someone into getting here? Is it really for me? Another thing is denial of achievements. Maybe there is actual a lot of achievements have been made, but I'm not seeing them. I might deny my achievements, my accolades, and I might not internalize my success at all. Superheroism, the need to be the best. And also achievemophobia. I love this word, the fear of success. Pharmacists, anyone with imposter syndrome might actually fear success, and that might show up in imposter syndrome. So when it comes to motivation, I'd like you to think about whether you have an all or nothing mentality. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it black? Is it white? Whether it's a conscious line of thinking or not, this type of thinking actually makes it easier for us to simply reduce our effort. So for example, well, I can't finish everything, so I won't do anything. Or I won't be ready until I have X, Y, and Z lined up perfectly. And so I just end up not doing it or waiting for this perfect moment that might never come along. So as we look at imposter syndrome today and what it means at the workplace, I'm asking you to embrace the gray area, right? It's not all black and white. It's not all good and bad. It's not all or nothing. And to try to get out of the habit of thinking that everything has to be perfect or it's not worth doing it all. So with that, let's talk a little bit more in depth. Over to you, Leslie.
And there is so much gray area out there. We often hear about imposter syndromes from our clients from the context of work. But if you're feeling it in a different area of life, it's completely understandable. It's that same nagging feeling, whether it's school, content creation for those business owners, parenting. Where in life is imposter syndrome showing up for you? One thing we did not do earlier, I meant to do earlier, was to let you know to go ahead. This is a great time to grab a piece of paper and a pen because we're going to want you to do some things as we go along. So I'm going to give you just a quick second to grab a paper and pen. And I want you to answer this question. Where in life are you feeling imposter syndrome? Just write it down on your piece of paper or in your notes, your iPad, wherever you keep notes. Some people type them in their phone. Where in your life are you feeling imposter syndrome? I occasionally hear things like parenting and had one client say, I sometimes feel like I just don't know what I'm doing as a parent. And I will often respond, does anybody really know what they're doing as a parent? Mm-hmm. So it happens in our personal life, not just our work life. Sometimes we say to ourselves, or we hear these words rattling around in our brain, I don't belong, I don't know enough yet. Everyone here has far more experience than I do. I know I failed that exam. What if my client already knows this stuff? You know, there's so many different ways that it can show up in our lives and in our worlds. And let me tell you, Jess and I work with some high-level executives. I work with a former Marine and COO of a large organization, and imposter syndrome creeps in for him a couple of times a year, and we talk about it. And so it's pretty powerful no matter what your level is.
Not many people are immune.
No, not too many people are immune at all. So think about some of those statements. You know, you talked about where I already asked where it shows up. What statements or what things are rattling around in your brain? What words are you saying to yourself? Because believe it or not, when you're thinking those words, it starts to stick. So if we can understand what words we're saying, then we can start to work on it. And as you think about those words that you're saying to yourself, my next question for you is, how does that make you feel? And for this one particular client, the COO, former Marine, when he's kind of dealing with this imposter syndrome, he feels like his anxiety level is higher, his stress level is higher. So there's quite often emotions and feelings that are really attached to that. And these emotions can be both psychological as well as physiological. So Jess.
All right, here we go. I'd love to talk about another book, The Expectation Effect by David Robson. For anyone who's curious, I would just say beware of the vicious cycle because saying becomes believing. This particular book talks all about what you believe and what you say, how that can become what you believe, and what you believe can actually become a physiological have a physiological effect. So just to give an example from this particular book, if you have a dim view of your fitness level, you might currently interpret the aches and the natural pains and the feelings of fatigue as signs of your own ineptitude. Man, I'm just not good enough at this. That could then trigger feelings of shame. I'm hopeless. I'll never be able to do this. I'll never improve. The reality here, of course, if we're talking about fitness and exercise, it's more than likely a sign that you're building strength and endurance, right? My muscles are sore. That's actually a really good sign. And just simply recognizing that fact can help you reduce some of the negative feelings of fatigue. And that's why in some of the resources we'll share later, it's really important to look for signs and really think about what the impact is rather than kind of just getting stuck in that mindset of, this is not good. This is a sign that I'm not good. So another interesting question here is our lifestyle, are our surroundings, has our upbringing contributed at all to imposter syndrome? And it's interesting to reflect on that and think about what you might notice. If, for example, you're a social media user, could it be that you're comparing yourself to other professionals? Does it seem like I'm on LinkedIn and everybody's got these amazing achievements and I don't have anything to say about myself today? And so might that be affecting how you're feeling? Social media has given us an unprecedented look at other people's lives in a filtered way, right? So when total strangers become a benchmark for us, it can affect us negatively. The workplace, are there any biases that could be cultural, that could be physical? For example, even the office design, neighborhood, community, access to resources. Might, for example, there be a group of activities geared towards one particular gender and not another? There's so many different things that are kind of built into the workplace that might actually be having an impact on the way that you're thinking about yourself. Simply being different from peers in any way, can that be playing a role? Is it overall self-esteem? Might there be other mental health issues at play? It's really, really important to understand that any of these could be contributing to the way that you feel. And again, just recognizing, is there a specific challenge that has come into my life that is making me really start to feel this way? And so let's just take a step back and put it all into perspective. There are people out there who are actually faking their existence. And I don't know if any of you have seen the movie Catch Me If You Can. That's where this photo is from. It's a great movie. Really, really recommend it. But it's about someone who's faking their life, basically. But that's not you, right? In imposter syndrome, we have to realize, okay, it's not quite that serious here. So if we move on, I'd like to think about what you wrote down earlier when we asked kind of what have you been telling yourself? What is the language you've been using for yourself when you have these imposter thoughts? Our challenge for you is how can you turn those words into a growth mindset? What is a growth mindset? So whereas imposter syndrome says, I don't know what I'm doing, it's only a matter of time until everyone finds out that I don't know what I'm doing. A growth mindset will say, I don't know what I'm doing yet, and it's only a matter of time until I figure it out, right? Just got to keep going. I will eventually figure this out and build confidence naturally. So that's the question for you today is how can you turn the words you've been telling yourself into something that supports growth?
And I'm going to jump into this one really quick, Jess.
Please.
The same holds true because we have a lot of pharmacy leaders out there, pharmacy owners, people who are running pharmacies. Your employees might be feeling like they have imposter syndrome, whereas you have the opportunity as a leader to help them turn it around and say, maybe you don't have all the answers yet, but I know you're going to get there. Let's do it together, something like that. So thank you, Jess.
Great. Okay. So now that we've talked a little bit about what contributes to imposter syndrome and talked about some perspectives, let's talk about how to move through it. Like, what do we do? I recognize I have these feelings. What do I do next? Because we all have work at the end of the day that needs to get done. We have goals that we want to achieve, right? We need to figure out how to work through this. So a question for all of you, is there a particular goal, again, something to reflect on, is there a goal that imposter syndrome is holding you back from at this moment? And as a leader, you're running a company, might there be something that it's holding an employee back from? as you talk about with your team, maybe lack of confidence comes up in conversation. Is there anything that might be holding your employees back? What partners? Okay. When it comes to promoting a culture of confidence at work, we would like to offer a series of strategies. What you're about to hear is not new information, most likely, but it is, however, an opportunity to rethink these different strategies in the context of fostering an organizational culture that reduces imposter syndrome and supports employees. So with that, I'll pass it over to Leslie again.
So thank you, Jess. First and foremost, understand that I'm not alone, right? We are not alone. Knowing that changes the game. So almost everybody experiences it in some way, shape, or form. What was the number earlier, Jess? 70%?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So imposter syndrome is more common than you realize. Some of the most successful and innovative people, such as Albert Einstein and Maya Angelou, experienced episodes of imposter syndrome. Discovering that a respected mentor, peer, or loved one has experienced imposter syndrome helps us realize that we are not alone. So knowing that we're not alone and helping our teams know that they're not alone. Regular check-ins and open door policies. Some of you may not have doors at all, right? Depending on how the pharmacy lays out, but that open door mentality, let's talk about this. I'm here if you need me. I'm here if you want to talk. Regular check-ins and open door policies can help create this type of atmosphere. You'll want to make sure you're giving impactful feedback. And we'll be doing a feedback session in a couple of months, I believe it is. So we'll talk more about feedback a little bit down the road in a future session. But be aware of disengaging work habits, such as withdrawal from a social group, hesitancy to ask questions or speak up, persistent excuses for falling behind on deadlines. These can all be signs that someone is trying to hide their insecurities. Could be other things, but it could be a sign that they're trying to hide their insecurities. So initiating dialogue with employees early on can help to prevent those seeds of self-doubt for getting rooted, for growing. Whoops, I got too excited there. So creating a brave or safe place. Encourage an environment where employees feel safe to express their doubts and insecurities without the fear of judgment. We call this psychological bravery. Some call it psychological safety, as we want leaders to create a space to be open and real. And we want the employees to be appropriately brave. In coaching, we help our clients create psychologically brave places because we can't guarantee safety in the workplace. But as a leader, an owner, the head of the pharmacy, you can work to create that psychological safety where your employees feel safe to talk about things in an open, real environment, and even for yourself. The thing is to be aware of, psychological safety and bravery hits us all differently. It can be different by culture, by leader, by manager, by gender, by skin color, by gender identification. For some, it comes really easy to create this and live in that psychologically safe place or psychologically brave place. For others, it may take trust building and professional development to either get there yourself or to help get your team there. So understand it's not the same for all of us, just as every one of us on this call today are different. Your employees, your teammates, your family members, your peers, your bosses, whatever, everybody's different. And words, man, do they ever have power? So think about how you pivot the language employees use to describe themselves at work and even yourself. Right? We must take seriously the language that we use to describe our experiences work. And if our members of our team are described as having imposter syndrome or name it directly, listen intently. Have honest conversations about what it takes to win in your organizational culture, and help your team members adjust to create accurate self-assessments versus those inaccurate, those stories that we tell ourselves that our brain is so capable of making up. The next is share your story, because I would bet if 70% of the population has dealt with imposter syndrome in one way, shape, or form, I bet you have too. Most of you, at least 70% of you. So share your story, share your own experiences with imposter syndrome, highlight the conditions that triggered that response, share stories and testimonials from all levels within an organization, if you have a larger organization, that really discuss personal experiences around different situations and especially imposter syndrome. This can really start to help demystify the issue and show that it's a much more common and a very manageable concern. Next, provide professional development. Invest in learning and development that helps employees and even yourself recognize their value and build confidence. Workshops focusing on skill development, confidence building, assertiveness training, emotional intelligence, and leadership can be particularly effective in this area around this imposter syndrome. Remember, we can't do something until we can. For those that are pharmacists on this call, and I believe that's most of you, you weren't a pharmacist until you were, right? So I'd like to encourage all of you to really focus on goal setting and goal tracking and think about that for yourself, but also think about it for your team, for your peers, for your employees that work with you. Jess, you want to take it away into some exercises?
I do. All right. So we have 3 exercises, and this is tied to the resources that we'll be sharing that you can start using today. So again, we'll share that QR code and link a little bit later for the actual worksheets, but let's get in for number 1. Here's the first exercise. It's to look for evidence of achievements. If you feel that you're facing imposter syndrome, or an employee has, stated that they're feeling low confidence, the best place to start rebuilding confidence is to look for evidence of achievements in the career thus far. For that, we have an achievement inventory worksheet. It's a very simple format that asks the participant, the writer, the person, to describe their achievements over the last few weeks, months, even years. Describe those achievements, explore the impact of those achievements, and also explore the skills used in the achievement. So let's take a couple minutes, all of us, to just do this really quickly through one achievement. I'll give you a couple minutes, again, to just think about with the piece of paper you have nearby, or even your phone, to describe the achievement you've made in recent history. Think about the impact of this achievement and the skills that you used while making this achievement. I'll give you a couple minutes to think through that one.
Well, everybody's thinking. I'm going to give an example. Are you cool with that, Jess?
Absolutely. Go for it.
Okay. Mine is in the making. And so as we were thinking about this today and just doing our final prep for today's session, I got to thinking about what I'm working on right now and building a podcast. Jess and I are working on a podcast together. And so the achievement is going to be the podcast. Because it's in motion. The impact of this achievement is really going to be the impact for the listener. It's going to be a retirement podcast on planning for retirement from a non-financial perspective, whether you're selling a business or retiring from a corporate gig. So the impact for the listener will be to plan and think differently. But those skills that I'm using in this achievement, and they're harder for me because I tend to be more of a creative thinker, is planning and strategic thinking, where that's Jessica's really strong gift. It is harder for me. So a skill that I'm building and continuing to work on is that planning and strategic thinking.
And that's an interesting perspective to think about achievements, and also just the work in progress. Like, what am I working on now? What is the progress I've made so far? So, right, especially when you are facing a specific challenge, and maybe sometimes it's really hard to think about, I've achieved this, right? I'm just not seeing my recent past achievements. But let's say I'm working on a project, I've hit some milestones. What have I achieved up to this point so far? And what are the skills that I've used? And what is the impact that's made? That's another great way to look at things, especially when you're stuck on a particular project. All right. Next exercise is to take a look at what you bring to the table. what you or your employee brings to the table. This can be in terms of strengths, skills, learning style, communication style, passions, etc. And so the worksheet we have for this is the asset inventory. Put up on screen. And so here we have a list of questions to get people to consider what their assets are. What do they bring to the table? So for all of us here today, just to use one example, you can explore the full worksheet a little bit later, but I'd like us to consider question number 7 on this worksheet. The question is, what are some of the things people compliment you on or say thank you for? So that's a good question to give you the context. Okay, I'm looking for evidence here that I'm doing something right, or that I have this skill or this strength, or that I bring something to the table. So let's think about what is something that someone has complimented me on lately or said thank you to me for. That can give you a good context, because sometimes it's hard to say me, right? Especially when you're feeling those imposter thoughts. Sometimes it's hard to come up with stuff. So these questions in the asset inventory help to guide that thinking, that it doesn't feel so maybe self-involved.
Great. I love that. That's not unlike the asset inventory that you might have in the pharmacy, where you're tracking your year-end assets, that sort of thing. Except this is for yourself. Thanks for that, Jess.
Sure. All right. Now, I'm going to share another final exercise today that I recommend if you are an employee might be procrastinating. If you notice you're procrastinating on a specific task due to a lack of confidence, this is going to be great. So look out in yourself and others for the excuses, I'll call them excuses, you see on screen, to identify or try to identify this type of procrastination, right? It's not quite perfect yet. I'll start with the easier tasks, right? If I have a to-do list and there's that one big thing that I just keep avoiding it from one day to the next because I'm focused on the easier tasks, so that it feels more manageable. Maybe I should get a certification first, right? I don't think I can do this yet until I have that certification. Sometimes we need a certification to do certain things, right? But sometimes it can be an excuse to kind of avoid that task that we could get started on without the certification. Maybe it's, I'm worried I'll get it wrong, so I'm just going to avoid it altogether, or I'll wait until I feel more prepared. Is there ever a moment when we feel fully prepared for everything? No, I hope not. That would probably be pretty boring in life, honestly. So as long as we're not using that as basically an excuse to procrastinate. So this exercise is called a focus wheel. And it is a great exercise to help you create forward movement. And again, we'll share this resource, but basically the idea is to put your goal or that task goal, what is it that you're procrastinating on, in the center of this focus wheel. And then all around in each slice of the wheel, I like to call them little pizza slices, put some positive evidence that you've achieved something similar, that you have the skills to achieve this. So basically positive statements related to the goal you want to achieve. This is an incredible exercise that I use frequently in coaching, because it gets you to think about just proof that you can do it. And it seems super simple, but the exercise is just thinking it through, and not only thinking about it, but writing it down or saying these things out loud have a very, very different effect than simply just kind of being in your head. So having a worksheet to write it down, or even talking through these things with your coach, have quite a different effect. Another thing about a worksheet that's kind of cool is you can think about I've filled out this focus wheel. Now, where can I keep it that I see it when I come in to work every day until I get this project done that I've been procrastinating on? It's nice to have something physical that you can put in an accessible place to say, all right, that's a reminder. I can do this. I do have the skills for this. I am prepared for this. That can help you create a little bit more forward movement. Back over to you.
Thanks, Jess.
Sure.
So as we continue on around these tools to help mitigate imposter syndrome, you may have noticed these exercises really all focus on recognizing strengths, achievements, and positive statements. There's a good reason for that. Recognizing and rewarding achievements ensures that employees work hard and successes are acknowledged. The key is to understand what type of achievements or recognition what type of recognition your employees like. You have some people that are total extroverts and they want it out loud, and some that are introverts and they want it soft and quiet, maybe in an email, maybe in a handwritten note card. But understand regular recognition can boost self-esteem and help individuals internalize their achievements. This is an important one. Build healthy, supportive network. Hopefully all of you have a healthy network of people in your life. Build a healthy, supportive network. Finding a professional, non-judgmental group or community can provide a healthy network of people who have similar experiences and are finding ways through that. It could be your local chamber of commerce. A networking group at your chamber of commerce could be of value if you're working to build your business. And quite often they might be dealing with the same business struggles you're dealing with, just in a different type of business. So finding those groups, finding connection is really powerful. Now, this next one is one of my favorites, and one that I'm not so great at, but I'm working on it, is encourage a recharge. Encouraging recharging for this healthy work-life integration. Notice I did not say work-life balance, but integration. Promote practices that help prevent burnout. Employees who have time to recharge are less likely to experience this chronic self-doubt. Create a diverse and inclusive culture. Cultivate an environment where diverse perspectives are valued, where everyone can see role models who reflect their background and their experiences. Remember, your customers are quite diverse. Also, this is a great time to be thinking about what biases do I hold, or does my organization, what are we holding on to? It could be generational bias. It could be community bias. There are so many different things. The next one is confidence with an F and competence with a P are not the same. So promote and develop competence, because real confidence grows with action. That imposter syndrome diminishes with action. After all, as pharmacy leaders, most of us, if not all of us, have probably hired someone who we thought to be competent, but it turns out they were just overly confident, and it might have bit us a little bit in the backside. If you have not hired someone that's overly confident and undercompetent, you are very lucky. So this is the list that we've looked at today. Realize you're not alone. Promote open communication. Create a safe, brave place. Pivot language that we use. Normalize our experiences. Provide professional development for yourself. Seek professional development, maybe even outside of the pharmacy line of work that you're doing, to expand your horizons, because you'd be surprised at how many things where the dots connect. Goal setting, goal tracking, recognizing and rewarding achievements for yourself, but for your team. Build a community, build a network. Recharge, create a diverse and inclusive environment, and understand that confidence and competence are not the same. So this is a great time to go ahead and pull out your phone and scan the QR code. It's going to take you to all of the resources. It's going to take you to the library. Jess, can you pop in? Oh, no, we don't have it we can't use the chat. Murdad will ask you to send it to everyone as a follow-up, if you would, please.
Sure. Basically, this presentation will be on our RX Connection YouTube by tomorrow. So everyone can go back and listen to it over and over again. Thank you, Jess and Leslie. This was really, really awesome presentation. I think I learned that I've been suffering from imposter syndrome all my life, but I just did not realize that I was suffering from imposter syndrome. Now, I have a question. After you made clear that 70% of all anybody, 70% of all people do suffer from imposter syndrome. But what I want to know is that, like, as healthcare professionals, pharmacists, doctors, nurses, and we're day-to-day activities, and we're barely keeping up with our patients' demand, with our practice and everything else. Where do we start? I mean, how do we get started? Let's say if I realize I have some sort of a, imposter syndrome that I need to overcome. Where do I start? I mean, where do I go? Do I go see a psychiatrist? Do I come see you guys? Do I go get some help, read some books? So it would be good if you let everybody let you know your thought. I've also let everyone open their mic if they want to ask questions for the next 5 minutes or so. You can open up your mic and ask any question that you would like to ask Leslie and Jess. So
awesome. I'm going to step into that and then let Jess build on it.
Sure.
First of all, I think a great opportunity is, if you want to go it alone, use those 3 resources that Jess told you about: the achievement, the asset inventory, as well as the focus wheel. Those are 3 great places to start. If you are interested in coaching, we would love to work with you. And there are other coaches out there if we're not the right fit. But that said, coaching can be a great non-judgmental way to kind of figure out what's happening and where it's coming from. And most importantly, focus on the actions going forward. Coaching is all about forward movement. Psychology is where they spend much more time in the past, kind of digging into why it's happening. We really focus on where are you at now and where do you want to go and how do we get there. But I would really start with the free assets that you have. If you want to go deeper, we would love to work with you. But that's where I would start. Jess, any builds?
Sure. I would say, depending on your comfort level, also consider your network. Are there people in RX Connection, network even, where if you're feeling comfortable with it, saying, hey, we both are in a similar position. I'm just curious, have you ever kind of had these feelings? Because I've been feeling that way. Of course, it is very vulnerable, but at the same time, there is so much we can learn from other people who are in just also the same industry, right? There's a lot more that we can relate to beyond the simple feelings of imposter syndrome. It's like, yes, maybe I started, my own pharmacy, or maybe I started working with a partner and suddenly I started having these feelings. And so being able to learn from the specific industry-related experiences can also be a really nice way if you're open to having that dialogue.
But if I'm correct, though, Jess or Leslie, some of it is basically come from the fear that maybe the individual may have, right? They may say, "Oh, I wonder if this doctor or this pharmacist knows more than I do,"
Sure.
And they kind of have this fear, and that kind of contributes to the imposter syndrome. Correct? So, what do you suggest everyone do if they get into a situation they feel uncomfortable? They don't know if this guy knows more or less. I mean, how do you overcome that?
It's hard to overcome if somebody is not being truthful and forthright with you. But I would always start with, what stories am I telling myself? Let's look at the facts versus the stories that I've created. Dare to Lead is a phenomenal book, phenomenal program. And one of the key pieces is the stories we tell ourselves. Our brain has this amazing gift of making stuff up. I would typically use another word, but I shan't today. We are so talented at making things up when we see something, hear something, and maybe it's different than what we expected. Our brain makes up stories. So first of all, I would go to, what are the facts?
Right. Yeah.
And get out of the stories that we're telling ourselves, because those stories can be vivid, wild, and 90% untrue.
True.
And also,
Yeah.
if your concerns are around other people in the industry, of course, that's when it really does make sense to speak to a coach, even a therapist, who is a third party away. So if your concerns are around, kind of who's the competition or who else is in the industry that I'm feeling like I don't know a lot compared to them, in that case, it does make sense to speak to someone who's in a third party, maybe even out of the industry entirely, and kind of talk through it with them without that pressure, that industry pressure.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And if there really is a person that you don't have confidence, I mean, I would trust your gut. There's something going on there. Maybe you need to do a little research, right? Our gut's really good as long as we're not creating stories. So think about that and maybe check in with somebody who's worked with that person before and get their perspective, how they're feeling about it, that sort of thing.
Yep. Good. Very good. Very good. Thank you, Jess and Leslie. This was awesome. I mean,
Great. Our next one is November 20th, and it's called Get Unstuck.
That's right. So you guys need to come back and get unstuck. And thank you, everyone. This will be on the RX Connection YouTube channel by tomorrow. And please make sure you like and you share that with other professionals or other colleagues that you may have. Share it with your technicians or other pharmacists. I mean, for sure, everyone can benefit from this presentation. And without any further undue. Yeah. So we look forward to our next call, November 20th. So thank you, everyone. Again,
Thanks
if you need to reach
us.
us, you can always reach us at rsconnection.com. We'd be more than happy to share any kind of information with you. Thank you, Jess. Thank you, Leslie. Really appreciate your being here. This was a great presentation, and we look forward to working with you again and again. Okay?
See you soon. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.